Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Arell. I'm thinking today pretty deeply about the concept of agency, which I define as our taking some kind of action framed within, for instance, situations of human suffering or traumatic circumstances. It's a serious topic to me, and it's pretty robust. But why it's come up into my thinking for the videos has to do with some research a student is doing on trauma-informed care. Two of the things that we are discovering are, one, that agency in terms of the process of trauma recovery is situated always at the end. And two, that safety, which is part of that process, which I'll articulate real quick in a second, is the focus of trauma-informed care. Generally, I would say that this process of recovery that situates safety as paramount and puts agency at the end is loosely based on Judith Herman's process, which is safety, memory, and mourning, and then reintegration with the world or reconnection with the world, and then most recently in her recent work related to justice. It's loosely. Some people cite her, but this is just loosely based on that process. As I've been thinking about the use of both of these terms, I have thought about the necessity to situate agency throughout the process in a more robust way, to not relegate it to the end and to always make it part of what we do when we're working through experiences that are difficult for us, experiences of suffering or trauma. In Judith Herman's book, Trauma and Recovery, agency is all throughout it. I want to underscore that thread, and I want to think about it in a couple different ways. Conceptualizing agency as taking place throughout the process means that even in the experience where I have the sensation of helplessness, for instance, related to trauma, that I still have some ability, I still have some core strength, I still have agency. I am a capable agent. Can I change a particular circumstance? Maybe no. Can I push against it? Maybe yes. Maybe no. Then what? Where is the agent? Where is the action that one can take? This would be the most basic, maybe the first and the little spark of a step that one can enact if something around them is really just falling apart. And that is the capacity to imagine something different. Even that small act is an act of action that encapsulates the way that I think about agency. Agency is way more than that. It's doing more. It's taking action. It's taking care of yourself. And we can make a huge list of what it means to be an agent and take agency. I want to reduce it, though, to in the most dire circumstance, we at least have ourselves and our capacity to think and our capacity to imagine something different. That is very important to me, in part because in my work and in my life and how I work with students and how I work with people, that I really push against, and I've done this in another video, the concept of identification as a victim. When bad things happen to us, the articulation in many cases of the reality that one's been victimized is really an important part of the process and an important step. So articulating that I was victim of a crime, whatever crime that could be, articulating the bad things that happened, voicing them, proclaiming them, important. Staying there, not the greatest idea. I always want to foster an envisioning of movement, again tied to this idea of action and agency. Not to get stuck in an identification as a victim or stuck in the experience of helplessness, because ultimately that doesn't do anybody any good, and it certainly isn't good for yourself. Again, back to thinking about agency throughout the entire process. So even when I say this happened to me, I am taking some kind of action. I don't want to stay in that place of victimhood or identifying as a victim, because then it signifies that I'm not continuing to take action. That's one way to think about it. Now, there's another element of identification that I actually read about this morning in an article related to Bessel van der Kolk's work on the body and trauma. He wrote a book, The Body Keeps the Score, very popular. I've probably talked about it before in some of these videos. Claim that he was making in the article I read this morning was that there is a trend now contemporarily for people to really identify with their trauma and then kind of lead with that trauma experience as a way of conducting the rest of their life. This is problematic on a bunch of different levels, but one of the levels at which it can cause havoc is on our physiology. And this is because what trauma or experiences of suffering do to begin with to us in our bodies is create a sensation that the past is still present in the present. When we lead life experiences with this identification with our trauma, we're basically arresting ourselves in this position where the past is present in our present. And it creates a kind of lock on our ability to move forward. And part of the process may be trying to break free from that lock. But again, in my mind, it has to be conceptualized in terms of what can I do? What action steps can I take? How can I move so that I feel like an agent taking action of care of myself, of care of the other, of disrupting this way that I enact my life by leading with my trauma? It's quite complex. It is not easy to do. So if you find yourself in that position, it's probably worth some thought. Thought itself can be a way of promoting action and agency. We are thinking beings. It's a gift we have in relationship to animals on this planet. And it signifies action to me. But it also is the beginning of breaking up this identification with trauma. I encourage you then to think about what agency and taking action is in your own life related to your own past, related to your own stories of trauma. And start small if it feels too big to move your foot, for instance. If it feels too big to make a big change, maybe just sit down and imagine, what does it look like if I make this change? Imagine, what do I feel like if I make this change? Imagine into that feeling. Imagine into that action. And then think about little ways that you can build up to making bigger actions or bigger steps to alter your own identification or stuckness in a trauma narrative. Thanks.